Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah. In the past, I've mentioned many times about the misconceptions that people have about Islam. And one time, I know I mentioned about maybe 3-4 episodes ago about some of my co-workers at Pan American Airlines, where I used to work in New York City as a technician, surrounding my work area and holding hands and praying to Jesus to bring me back into to Christianity and take me out of Islam. And maybe at another date I'll read that particular verse, but today I want to read something that I recited to one of my co-workers and helped him to get a better understanding on the world in general. It's called Surah to Asr. My co-worker's name was Leon, and he came into work one morning, and he was, I could see that he was a little, I'll say, depressed. And I said, Leon, how are you doing today? He says, oh, rotten. He says, we're all going to hell. It's not a good place. This world, he says, it's a bad place. And I had just learned this particular verse from the Quran. And it's called Surah to Asr, as I mentioned in the beginning. And it goes like this. Wal Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa lathina aminu wa amilu salihat wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. And what that means in English is, by the time, meaning time from the beginning of time, as we're able to calculate it. Surely man is in loss. And, you know, if you look in the past and you see all the societies that have come and gone, and you see some type of debauchery, some type of behavior that could be called paganistic or cannibalistic or all the types of things that human beings have been involved in, surely man is in loss. Okay? And then there's an exception here. It says, except such as have faith in God, faith in God's prophets. Okay? Faith that there's a hereafter. And do righteous deeds, what God commands us to do. God does not command us to have orgies or to get drunk like the Romans used to do or other societies. God does not command us to eat one another like some cannibalistic societies to do. God doesn't command us to sacrifice one another like the Aztecs and the Mayas and the Incas used to do. Okay? And those are not righteous deeds. Okay, righteous deeds are charities, zakat, or, you know, that's the obligatory charity that we have to pay as Muslims, or sadaqah, which is the voluntary charity that we see when someone comes to us in need. Okay, that's a righteous deed, and there are many others. Okay, and who are patient, and who mutually enjoin one another. We're constantly calling one another to do good deeds. We're constantly calling one another to be patient in doing those good deeds. And we're constant at it. Okay? Those are the ones who are saved. And when I read this to Leon, or when I recited it to Leon, he said, good God Almighty. He said, that's the truth. Where'd you get that from? I said, I got it from the Holy Quran. And, you know, I'm forever after that. Leon, who, I don't know if he ever became a Muslim, but Leon respected me. All right, actually, he respected me after the first encounter we had when they were holding hands. That's another story for another time. Our brother Abdullah here, he's going to continue on with his very informative narrative about how he interacted with his co-workers, how he interacted with his family, and some of the things that occurred as he developed and grew in Islam. Brother Abdullah?
Yes. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Wa salatu wa salam ala khayri anbiya wa mursaleen Muhammad. And may the peace and blessings be upon the best of the prophets and messengers Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, and upon his family and all of his companions. One of the challenges I had as a new Muslim, working in a hospital setting, because I had an internship at the VA hospital in Los Angeles. Majority of those working in dietetics.
This is all a part of your public health.
Yeah, it was part of the program that I was in. It was a combined program of Masters of Public Health, and then dietetic internship.
Okay.
And so the majority of those in the dietetic field, I'd say maybe 98% are women, female. And, you know.
Yeah, I have a daughter-in-law that went into that. Well, she started.
Yeah.
And then she got pregnant 3 times. And
You
you
she's
know.
still feeding the kids. Though.
Yeah.
That's a big part.
Yeah.
So in there.
Actually pregnant 5 times.
5 times.
Yeah.
Mashallah. Mashallah. The culture in America is, you know, shaking hands.
And let me just say something.
Yes.
I hate to do this, but she does not feel that she missed anything by not entering public health. She's much happy, from what she told me, being a mother.
Yeah.
You know, so just thought I'd add that so we don't get into the feminist thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like a foundation of public health. Starts at the home.
That's true.
You know, it's the smallest unit you deal in terms of public health is the family, and the mother's a key part about that.
That's
so
true.
It's completely.
And she's the one that does
Yes,
most of the cooking.
Most of, not just the cooking, the teaching, the first teacher you have, mother's tongue. So what you're saying is completely, you know, dialed into the aspect of public health in that aspect.
True.
Primary teacher.
So what happened in the VA hospital?
Well, the culture is, you know, sometimes you would meet somebody new, shaking hands with a lady. So that was something to kind of overcome. Or being in a room by themselves, if you could avoid that. Explaining why you don't do that. Why can't you shake my hand? Why can't you do that? And explains that unless there's a dire emergency need for me to put my hands on you, I have no business touching you. So culturally wise, that was something to, you know, and explain to them.
Is it because we think women are dirty?
No, the opposite is that if the woman is somebody you could potentially marry, there's a way to meter that relationship. But touching them and being alone with them is something that opens the door for other type of trials and tribulations.
Okay.
And
which we see happening in the
for sure, sexual harassment.
Societies.
Yes, sexual harassment is a huge part of it. Huge part. And the practices of Islam prescribed by the Quran and the traditions.
And even if it's not sexual harassment, think about how many children are born whose parents are not married.
Yes.
And sometimes don't even know who their father is.
Yeah.
In some instances don't know, you know, their parents, their mother will give them up for adoption.
That's going on the other.
So all of that's part of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
the other spectrum.
It reaches that extreme.
Yes, getting the other spectrum. After one way or the other, they have solidified that relationship in some way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a challenge. Also, the aspect of, you know, let's say you're giving advice about how to improve, let's say the benefits they used to attribute to alcohol consumption, moderate alcohol consumption in terms of whether it's iron or the benefits they would attribute. It's something that eventually, of course, they found out they don't recommend people to do that anymore, and to have their glass of wine, you know, after once a day or every meal. They don't recommend it anymore. No, they say there's some benefit, just like, you know, Allah tells us in the Quran in terms of the close meaning is that, you know, gambling and alcohol, these are bad things, but in them they are some benefits to man, but the harm they cause are greater than any benefits you get. And so now they have flipped the script, and now they don't recommend people. They say if you it's better to just stay away from alcohol consumption. But at that time, it was something that was promoted. So if they ask you, well, in your plan, why didn't you just mention that as a part of a way of them to improve their iron, or improve, you know, another aspect of their diet?
Can I just once again, I'm sorry to keep doing this to you, but we don't avoid alcohol because of the health benefits. We avoid it because God told us to.
Yes.
And the result is, now that we know that there's a health benefit to it, all those generations that came before us that didn't know about the health or these other issues, okay, just doing it because God, we're protected from that.
Yes.
Okay, am I right about that?
Yeah, we're protected. Just the acknowledgement. The reason we do all we do is because Allah, God has commanded us to do that. That's the first reason.
That's the first reason.
Goes beyond the scientific explanations or justifications. So that's the primary reason. And then, you know, even then, acknowledging there's some benefits, but the evil in it, you know, outweighs it.
Okay.
So there's those little
at the VA
nuances.
hospital. That's what
It was
I
at
want
the
to try to
Veterans
get
Hospital.
back to.
VA, the Veterans Administration Hospital.
Okay.
And and so it was that was, I mean, one of the just some of the challenges. And like I said, as a new Muslim, you understand things different. You want it to be absolute. So when I was at the hospital, you're supposed to dress professionally, and I did, except for I didn't have tailored pants that could be on the middle of my calf, so I stapled them. And so there's small things, there's a way of achieving the same goal, but there's a better way of doing it. So, I mean, those were challenges, being new in Islam and then trying to understand how to live it within the spectrum that is allowable to,
What about the patients? Did you interact with the patients?
Oh, yes, I had patients.
Okay.
Yes, I had patients.
Most of them were non-Muslim.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you have any aversion to them, or?
No. I mean, no, because
not.
the goal, you're trying to impart.
There's a great deal of barakat involved. And barakat meaning blessings involved in what
Yeah,
you're doing.
as long as the intention is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the intention was for me to learn and to impart them with knowledge to help them better, provide for their body with food.
Okay.
And prevent
nutrition.
harm. Yes, and prevent harm if they were taking things that were harmful. So yes, with the right intention, it's not just a mundane act of performing whatever your duty is, but then also the intention of imparting some benefit.
Now, this is an interesting contrast, because I know that there's a lot of Jewish rabbis, especially in Israel, that have said that a Jewish doctor has no obligation to treat any non-Jewish people with any type of, to save their lives or to help them if they don't want to. We don't have any such fatwas like that. In fact, something like that would be haram. It would be unlawful.
Yeah.
And we don't think that God would put any people who say that they have the correct understanding of man's relationship with God in a position that it's okay to harm other people who are not of our faith, especially if we come through a prophet who has told us that our objective is to help humanity and to, this is my interpretation, it's incomplete, I know, but into an honorable death that would eventually, that would lead us into Jannah, to heaven, and to, a better place in the next life to come.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about what the rabbis say, but for us, we're supposed to, you're supposed to impart the best that you have to all of Allah's creation. We have obligation.
Exactly.
And particularly to mankind, so that by that, not only do you discharge your duty, but also maybe a means of guidance for them, that show of kindness. And it's not unique to Islam. And even the aspect that many things in Islam, it didn't bring anything new, but it was just reminding those who came before us of what they were already commanded with.
Right, exactly.
So it's not like, and that was a big thing about accepting Islam. It wasn't a dismantling about the way I was brought up when I was a Christian or the things, but what it did was it built those things that were solid and truthful and accurate. It built them and put more meat on them, and it removed the debris of all the things that was added.
Debris being the confusion.
Being the confusion, the misrepresentation of who Allah is, and what's the objective of the guidance that came from the Abrahamic faith, is that your God is one, follow the example of the prophets, and do good deeds.
Right. And it's kind of puts your heart at rest, doesn't it?
When you know what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If you're wondering, then it's I
found that when I would go out, all right, and I'd look at people, because I was always taught as a Christian that, as a Christian, you could do pretty much anything you wanted to do as long as you chose Jesus as your personal Savior, and you'd be okay.
Yeah.
And in Islam, all right, it's why would God do such a thing? Tell you it's okay to lie, to cheat, to fornicate, whatever you want, and just say, but I believe in Jesus, so I'm okay.
Yeah.
All right? Now, I'm not saying all aspects of Christianity believe this. And actually, the purpose of what we're doing here is not to castigate other religions, but, sometimes you can't help to compare, especially when you come out of that, when you were a part of that. And, one of the things I found personally is that being a Christian, all right, it oftentimes put me in a state of mind, all right, when I would see somebody doing something, okay, and I'd call them a savage or a pagan or something of those along those lines, okay, without trying to understand or without the comprehension that they were behaving this way, all right, simply because they didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you said something key, really key. I mean, for example, public health is about behavior modification. And so if you proceed, you engage with life feeling that you're going to be forgiven for everything no matter what, as long as you say a particular word, you believe in Jesus and such forth, that's a different way of going about it versus what we do as a Muslim. You believe in Allah and your Prophet Muhammad, but your deeds, you're going to be accountable. And some Muslims will go and be punished by the fire. They won't stay there forever, but they will touch it. They may touch it, a good majority, and be brought out. You go about things a lot different when you have that mindset that you're still accountable, and you may taste some of those misdeeds.
Okay.
At some point in time. So it changes behavior.
Compared to the men in your family, your uncles, your father, your grandfathers, the men in your family, all right? You have children. After you got married, you had a family, okay? How do you find the way that you're raising your children, all right, in comparison to the way that maybe some of the concepts that you were given?
I think, first of all, there's obligation to parents. For example, the way I might have dealt with my mother before I was a Muslim and the things I might have said, it didn't register. You're supposed to be honorable to your parents, but what does that look like? So the principle is there, but how does it look when it hits the ground? It clarified that. So you don't say, oof, you don't make gestures of displeasure towards them. So that was a big part.
Yeah.
Disrespect. So that was a big part. And in addition, that you want good, even if your family is not Muslim, you still want good for them. So
That's
you can't cut them off. Just because I'm a Muslim, I can't cut off
this is from
my brother because he's
he's
a Buddhist, or my other brother who's a Christian, or my mother. You can't cut them off because you'll be blameworthy. You'll be blameworthy, and you're going to pay consequences by doing that. You're supposed to maintain the ties of kinship. So those are big differences. Just to make it as a brief one, and that changes your mindset, knowing that you still have to exert and be patient with what harms they may bring to you, and still give them their rights, even if they don't give them back to you. So, and that changes your level of tolerance. Because the objective is above, and it's beyond just you, and that's a behavior modification that goes back to just mental health and how to balance it, and that's it's very, very important.
It sounds like it's kind of eliminating the job title psychologist.
By that term, except for we're supposed to be reminders to each other. So the psychologist sometimes, in Islam, we remind each other of those things that the Quran gives us and that the Sunnah gives us. So it becomes the obligation of all of us to remind what we're taught and not put it on a person who has a core profession.
Okay. The nutrition aspect of it, in the Quran, Allah tells us in over 250 places what to eat, how to eat, when to eat. Even in one instance I can think of why we should eat it. Okay? But there's barakat, there's blessings attached to everything that that Allah tells us to do that we do, including the food that we eat, which, it seems like a lot of people have forgotten that we eat for nutrition, not for pleasure. Okay? And this seems to be a trap that's been set for humanity worldwide. Okay? And it's something that I think that maybe in the next episode you can talk about, inshallah, as far as the nutritional aspects of how the human family is able to cure some of the illnesses that we have. Just through nutrition, like eating bananas or oranges or apples, in place of eating orange-flavored candy or apple-flavored candy or, orange-flavored candy or banana-flavored candies or these things that are bad for our teeth and bad for our health.
Yeah.
Maybe you can come back and give us some ideas about these things?
Yeah, that'd be great. Changing a mundane activity into an act of worship.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So, once again, that's why Islam works, because Allah tells us in Quran what to do. We do it, we get a benefit, a great benefit.